Hello everyone. In this video we will understand the difference between movement along the curve and shift in demand. Let us first understand movement along the demand curve using a graph and equations. In this graph, on vertical axis we have price of pizza and on the horizontal axis we have quantity of pizza. We draw a demand curve and mark a point on it. This point shows that when the price is 14, the quantity demanded is 3. Now let us reduce the price and move to a new price level. As the price changes, the point moves along the same demand curve and the quantity demanded also changes. Notice that the point does not leave the curve. It simply moves from one point to another point on the same curve. This is called movement along the demand curve. In simple terms, when price changes, quantity demanded changes and the point moves along the same demand curve. Since the demand curve represents the relationship between price and quantity demanded, a change in quantity demanded caused by the change in price is known as movement along the demand curve. Now let us understand this concept through a demand equation. This is our inverse demand equation. P is equal to 20 minus 2QD. We can also use the direct demand equation. QD is equal to 10 minus 0.5p. However, in standard mathematics, we usually plot the dependent variable on the y-axis and the independent variable on the x-axis. In the case of direct demand equation, if we plot quantity demanded on the y-axis and price on the x-axis, it becomes slightly confusing for analysis. For this reason, we will use inverse demand equation so that price remains on y-axis and quantity remains on x-axis. Now suppose the price is 14. After substituting this value into the equation and solving it, we get a quantity demanded of 3. This price and quantity combination represents the current point on the demand curve. Next, let us reduce the price from 14 to 4. As the price changes, the quantity demanded increases from 3 to 8. At the same time, the point on the graph moves along the demand curve towards the new combination of price 4 and quantity demanded 8. As we continue changing the price in the same equation, the quantity demanded also changes accordingly. Simultaneously, the point continues to move along the same demand curve. Notice that the value of price changes while the demand equation itself remains unchanged. Therefore, the point stays on the same curve because the demand equation represents the relationship between price and quantity demanded. So far we have studied what happens when the price of a good changes. Now we will study what happens when factors other than price change. This is known as a shift in demand. Factors other than price include consumer tastes, income, and weather conditions. When these factors change, demand may either increase or decrease. For example, pleasant weather may encourage people to eat at restaurants more often, increasing the demand for pizza. Similarly, when consumers' income increases, they can afford to buy more goods, including pizza. As a result, the demand for pizza increases. Now let us understand this with the help of a graph. Suppose a point on the initial demand curve shows that at a price of 10, the quantity demanded is 5 units. If consumers' income increases, they begin purchasing more pizza, causing the entire demand curve to shift to the right. At the same price of 10, the quantity demanded increases from 5 units to 7 units. Notice that the price remains unchanged at 10, but demand increases. This is called an increase in demand. The original demand equation also changes to P is equal to 24 minus 2QD because we now have a completely new demand curve with a new intercept. Initially, the intercept was 20, but after the increase in demand, the intercept rises to 24. So, a shift in demand does not change the price within the same equation. Instead, it generates a new demand equation with a different intercept value. If we substitute the same price 10 into the new equation with the new intercept 24 and solve it for quantity demanded, the quantity demanded becomes 7 units. This shows that consumers are now willing to buy more pizza at the same price 10. Every point on the new demand curve represents a higher quantity demanded than before. Therefore, this is called a shift in demand, not movement along the curve. Now let us consider the opposite situation. If consumers' income decreases, demand for pizza will also decrease. As a result, the demand curve shifts to the left. At the same price of 10, consumers now purchase only 3 units instead of 5. The demand equation changes again to P is equal to 16 minus 2QD, and the intercept decreases from 20 to 16. When we substitute the same price 10 into the equation with the new intercept 16, the quantity demanded becomes 3 units. This shows that consumers now buy fewer units at the same price. This situation is called a decrease in demand. In conclusion, movement along the demand curve and a shift in demand are two different concepts in economics. Movement along the demand curve occurs when the price of a good changes, causing a change in quantity demanded, while the demand curve and demand equation remain the same. In contrast, a shift in demand occurs when factors other than price, such as income, consumer preferences, or weather conditions, change. This creates an entirely new demand curve and a new demand equation with a different intercept.